Welcome to the Longest Take podcast. Thank you for tuning in to the Longest Take podcast. In today's episode, we are joined by Anthony Deveney. Anthony co-hosts Raiders of the Lost podcast with his brother James. In this incredible podcast, they go in depth on chosen film and TV topics with a passion that they've shared since childhood. Outside of the awesome podcasting, Anthony is also a writer and film director. Recently, his short, The Mother, has been released on YouTube. It's a great period piece with awesome performances, well-written drama, and cinematography that captures that subtle natural light beauty like one would see in The Tree of Life by Terrence Malick. Please welcome Anthony to today's episode. All right, so first things first, what are your top 5 favorite movies?
My top 5 are There Will Be Blood, which I think is the best film so far this century. And then Goodfellas, which is my favorite movie to watch. And I think it's just unbelievable. It's probably my most watched movie, at least 30 times for real. Like, I just love watching it all my life. Lawrence of Arabia. The more I see that, the more I'm just like so immersed into the large format filmmaking, and I'm a huge David Lean fan. But I just love the world building in that movie. It's so unbelievably immersive, and it just transports you. Gladiator, childhood favorite, and it still holds up like legit. It's insanely good. I love Maximus. He's one of my favorite movie characters, and that movie, like, it just inspires me, and it's just kind of like lightning in a bottle how Ridley Scott just pulled that thing off. And then Jaws, I think, is also one of my most watched. I have definitely over 25 watches of that film, and I've seen it in theaters a couple of times now, and it's still, I think it's the best made movie. Like, every shot that Spielberg came up with, every camera movement, every frame is just like the best decision made. And it's just like unbelievable how like every shot is just the next perfect thing that could have been done for that scene. And it's just unbelievable. And it's an incredible achievement of filmmaking. I love watching it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jaws, I mean, being able to see that on like an IMAX screen, it's crazy how you get a film from the 70s and you watch it in like a modern cinema, and it's like, dude, it's still perfect. Like, yeah, you know, it's great. It's really great. And God, yeah, I think that some of my favorite things to talk about when it comes to Jaws is the fact that Bruce was not working for them, and it led to, you know, better things out of the project. Like, since the shark wasn't working right, they used the barrels to kind of show where it is, and they did a lot of like, you know, more tension building instead of showing the shark themselves. And I think that I would say that that's a perfect movie. Absolutely.
Love all there's so many wonders in that movie, the Spielberg wonders that just like fly under the radar, and like these 40-second shots, they're not the big showstopper wonders, but like, he knows how to move that camera, and he just he'll set up like 3 different shots in one scene without ever cutting. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. And something else that Spielberg, one of his staples is I guess it's kind of like what the Safdies do now, but a lot more intensely and darkly. It's this like chaos when it comes to a bunch of characters together where they're all talking over each other. I feel like he was the pioneer for that. I didn't really see it in anything until Spielberg. And I noticed it a lot in Jaws this time around, where it's like,
there's a lot of layering.
Yeah, like when it's during the day, and I think Richard Dreyfuss just showed up, and you got I think the deputy's on the phone. He's talking to somebody about something. Sheriff Brody's on the phone talking about something, and he's also talking to Richard Dreyfuss. It's just like
this, like the blocking. There's just so many different levels, and in one shot, and like when. She answers the phone in the house, and then Brody and the kids are in the background. There's so many, and like you can hear just as loud their conversation in the background as in the foreground.
Yeah, and I absolutely love that. And I have to ask this because you mentioned Gladiator, and I don't know if this will be insulting or not. What did you think of Gladiator 2?
I had very low expectations for Gladiator 2. There's no way you can even come close to the original. But I will say I had a good time. I'm a big history buff. I'm a big ancient culture buff. So just seeing ancient Rome on a huge IMAX screen is really enjoyable for me. The story is not even in the same ballpark. It was serviceable. It was like, okay, if you want to make a sequel, I get it. At least Ridley Scott did it because Paramount was going to do it regardless. They want to turn it obviously into a big IP franchise. If someone's going to do it, Ridley Scott doing it, totally fine by me. It was a good time. It wasn't like a game-changing movie. And it wasn't, any kind of like high quality like writing, but I think they did a good job considering that it's a sequel to a movie that didn't need a sequel.
Right. And I agree. I didn't dislike it. I thought it was, like you said, it was pretty serviceable. I do think that the original sequel that was, I think, written back in the day, where it's like Maximus goes through, what is it, the afterlife, and he's like fighting through or something like that.
Yeah, Nick Cave wrote it, and Maximus is given an assignment in the afterlife, and he has to travel to the present day to assassinate like a world leader or something. It's some crazy way to spin it into contemporary times. And Nick Cave wrote it, and Scott wanted to do it, apparently.
They should have just did that, man. I just like doubled down on how ridiculous it would have been. I would have been there for it.
Yeah, the afterlife could work, and I mean, you can do that stuff because they believed in it back then, so it would make sense in the world of that story.
Yeah, that's actually a great way to put it contextually. Mm-hmm. And before we hop off your top 5 here, Lawrence of Arabia, still haven't seen it.
Oh, you gotta watch it. Yeah,
I know. I hear it. I see it on lists all the time, and I'm really bad about watching that one. I have to, and I think this is a sign for me to finally watch it.
You should get it on physical media if you can rent it. I use a video store in LA. I'm not sure if there's one near you. If you can find physical media, or just buy it. If it's playing at any old theaters near you, anytime soon, just keep an eye out for it because it really is like a filmmaking masterclass. It's just insane how that David Lean accomplished that feat. It's unbelievable. Every time I watch it, I still get blown away by the imagery and the shots and the gigantic size and scope of that movie is just mind-blowing.
Yeah, and it's on 4K, right?
Yeah, you can get it 4K. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because that's my go-to.
Gotta do it.
Always my go-to. So yeah, I'm definitely going to cop that.
Nice.
So Raiders of the Lost Pod has been around for about 5 years. What was the start of the pod, and how do you and James balance running the podcast with your cinematic aspirations?
So it was kind of on a whim that we started the podcast. It was during lockdown, and I had lost all my work as a freelance photographer and filmmaker. And James had still a full-time job, but I didn't know what I was going to do. And so James would actually happen to be doing a comedy podcast. James would do like solo hosted podcasts, sometimes have guests on, but basically like talked about culture. And he grew a pretty decent following, but he wasn't to the point of monetization really. And I saw that he was doing this, and he and I are both huge film buffs, obviously. And I tried listening to a few podcasts at the time, and this is 5 years ago, so there weren't that many film podcasts. Now there are so many. But I did give like the big ones a listen, and I didn't really like them that much. And I said to James, what if we did that? You and I talking about film. We know, I think, way more than a bunch of these people on these shows that are already popular. And he had already been using TikTok to great success with his solo stuff. And so we did the podcast, started doing episodes, and started posting it on TikTok, good like clips from the show, and that blew up. And then the TikTok numbers slowly trickled into like audio, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, whatever. So eventually enough people started listening to the show where we ended up becoming full-time on the podcast. And we've been full-time for over 4 years now. So we're very lucky because it's pretty rare to be at that level. And it was really just because of lockdowns. If the state hadn't locked down, we wouldn't have done a podcast.
Yeah, and I feel like that's where you did see a start of a lot of podcasts is because of lockdown. You know, you don't have a lot of opportunities to literally do anything else but It's great that you guys have sustained for a few years, and even when the world got back together, just continuing on that trajectory is great. TikTok, that's something I never really tapped into, but I feel like that's where most users are. I feel like there's like billions of people on TikTok.
Yeah, there's more people on Facebook, but they don't use it as much as TikTok. And Facebook doesn't have the same power as TikTok, which is why Meta needed Instagram. But TikTok, we've been filming every episode since day one, because we come from a filmmaking background. So we understood, it's a visual medium. People use their phones. Instagram's super popular, YouTube. So we're like, we got to film everything and just put it out there, because it would give people it gives people the option. They can listen to it or they can watch it. And we found that it's kind of split. People like to put it on their TV or people just like to listen to it while they run or drive. So it gives everybody a different format to listen to or watch it however they want.
Absolutely. And do you think there's I guess this would be the goal or the dream, but do you foresee there being a point where, your either of your cinematic aspirations become the forefront and then you just kind of have to walk away from the podcast?
We both want to be feature film directors and producers, but we don't see that as, ultimately that's our goal. That's always been our goal. And the podcast just happened to fall into place. But we think that if we could find great success in filmmaking, which we do hope we can and think we can, it would honestly only improve the podcast and help it and strengthen it. If we were actually making movies, we wouldn't be doing 7 episodes a week like we do now, but we would never stop. And we think it would give us an opportunity to have really big guests on, big industry players. So that we would always be like, it could actually strengthen and make the podcast better if we can end up making feature films relatively soon. So we think they'll go hand in hand. It won't be the same kind of output that we have, but also we'll be able to afford hiring a staff. So it must work for us.
yeah, I could see that being, that would make it a lot, it'll just improve it. I don't think there's any downside to that. And if you look at other filmmakers, Joe Lynch, he does his podcast, The Movie Crypt. Roger Deakins has the Team Deakins podcast. Joe Dante is on The Movies That Made Me. There's so many filmmakers that have a podcast, and I think that there's like a nice little balance you could do, and like you said, it'll only strengthen your output because you'll be able to really focus and have resources to get some big players on there. So
yeah, and also I would never want to stop doing it, because I do kind of feel like a responsibility, as in being in the podcasters who use TikTok a lot space. James and I, we believe, and it seems as though there's really a relatively small number of people in that space who actually talk about great cinema and old cinema and international cinema. And so we try to be like, you know what? But we kind of have a responsibility to do the best we can to spread the word about what great cinema is out there that isn't populist, corporate produced IP. There's so many other great films that we try to get people to learn about. And so we do take it upon ourselves now to be we have this attitude of we need to do the best we can to spread the word about film, to help keep it alive and spread it to young people. A teenager DM'd us today. He said he started listening to us when he was 11, and he only watched Marvel movies and Star Wars movies. And then over the past 3 years, he started watching art house cinema and international cinema. And he said it's changed, our podcast has changed him as a film fan, which is it's a goal of ours, and it's great to hear.
Yeah, and I imagine that's one of the biggest compliments you could receive. And that angle, I think, is really great for TikTok specifically. There are book talkers that I know of that, they're doing the same thing, but for books. They're getting to the younger generations to read some really good literature, not the typical stuff you see out there. So I personally, I love seeing these types of creators utilizing TikTok for good, I would say.
We try the best we can.
Yeah. Has your growing analysis of cinema and creating projects yourself affected how you look at movies nowadays? Would you say it has hindered or enhanced the movie-going experience for you?
I would say it has a little of both, because when I was growing up, now I'm 35 years old, so I was getting into movies when I was in the 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, a really nice time for cinema, all kinds of films. And when I was a kid, nobody judged movies in a way that they judge them now. If a movie was great, it was great. If it was good, it was still a good time. So I've recently felt that there's like this pressure and a stigma of, when you watch a film, you better have the right rating sometimes. And there's a strange judgment, especially for people like us we put our opinions out there on the internet. People can be very harsh nowadays about like what number you give a movie, and giving movies numbers, and people walk out of movies and they have to, okay, what do you rate it right away? And it's just like, that's not what I think movies should be about. Absolutely, ratings help, and people discover movies because they're highly rated. But I think there's a bit of an obsession over ratings, and that I feel that when I watch a movie and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna rate this, I'm gonna give it a low rating, and then people are gonna give me shit for it. And so there's just like, it's kind of taken out some of the enjoyment of going to the movies a little bit because of the reactions. But on the positive, it being my job and I've always been obsessed with breaking down movies and investigating movies. When I would watch a movie growing up, I would go on IMDb and Wikipedia and learn everything about that movie if I really liked it. And so I've always been like that. But being able to have film discourse as your job has motivated me to even investigate films even more deeply. And so the job has compounded how I look at film in a positive light, and in a way, like being rewarded for talking about film has strengthened my love for film, and being able to spread it to other people. The fact that people even give us the time of day to listen to us is very encouraging. So it is very full circle. So there's a positive and negative to it, I think.
Yeah, and that's a great answer. And I think that, and I guess the way that I would look at it, because you naturally look at things critically when you understand it from the filmmaking perspective, right? But I feel like it helps in the sense of like when you understand how the sandwich is made, or whatever the saying is, I think it also helps you appreciate elements to it. Like if the movie's not that good, what I like to challenge myself with is like, okay, well, what can I appreciate about this movie? I'm not really vibing with it right now. I'm going to look for things for me to like actually enjoy about it. And then I'll see a shot that I think is really good, or a performance sticks out to me. So I think that's another angle where someone who looks at it critically could kind of benefit and make it a little bit more enjoyable.
And actually, when you make movies and you understand how difficult the process is, and how like it's so hard to make a good movie, then you realize, you know what, you can't judge it as harshly as you think you should, because it's like nobody sets out to make a bad movie. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but still, filmmakers go into the best of intentions, and sometimes it just doesn't work. Sometimes it does. But when you understand how difficult that is to get it right, it makes you more lenient and more forgiving of the movies that are, a little weak. So I tend to like movies more than like the average user does, audience member does. I overly like movies because I just love them, and also I know how tough that job is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that another thing to point out too with the process is like you see a lot of people disregard studio movies like the MCU and Star Wars and all the big budget $200+ million budget movies, but when you break it down, those are like thousands of people's jobs are that. Like you break down the VFX teams and everybody working on the sets, that's a lot of people's livelihood. So I never want to watch a movie like that and be like, oh, that shit sucked. It's like, I might not have liked it, but that's still like that, it provided for a lot of different people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The people depend on the industry.
Yeah. Yep. And speaking of making movies, your first directorial, I guess, I don't know, do you consider it a feature or is it still a short? Because I think like 45 minutes or so, right?
Yeah, that's like the cutoff for it. It is a feature, essentially. So I made that film when I was 21 with James. He produced it, and basically the two of us wore every hat on the set. And it's actually originally longer. It's over an hour, like the original cut, but I trimmed it up, so that's why it's under. But originally it was like very long, and it was just crazy undertaking. And I just wanted to make a movie and actually do like a feature length film. And we just did it over a summer. The two of us and our friend Andrew, who just also was just like whatever we needed him for. So it was a crew of three 21-year-old guys. That was the crew. And we shot a film with over 40 actors and dozens of locations and interiors, exteriors. We filmed all over like the forests in Western Massachusetts, which are actually pretty dense and really beautiful and easy to work in. And it was like we wore every hat, from cinematographer to we were doing the sound design, Foley art, sound mixing. We were doing the lighting, costuming. We did everything ourselves. And it was I went to like film school, but I learned way more doing that. And the biggest thing that it teaches you that you don't quite get at film school is like the logistics of putting it all together and the planning of it, especially a big beast like that. It was like 2 months of not of shooting, but the whole thing took us 2 months in total to make. So it was just a gigantic undertaking. And when you actually do it and you're actually like shooting till 1 a.m. or waking up super early and like, we were living in a house with the crew for several days, just sleeping at night and shooting during the day. It's like, it was just an unbelievable experience, but you learn so much just actually getting into the nitty gritty of filmmaking.
Yeah, and I think hands-on is always going to be the best form of learning anything, really. Is it available to watch anywhere?
It's not.
Okay.
We did screenings when we finished it. We screened it at a few theaters, and we actually went to a few colleges and screened it, and they all went really well. But I took it offline. It's good for like a couple of 21-year-olds, but it's not in terms of caliber, quality of writing and filmmaking. Like I shot this whole thing on my shoulder with the DSLR. It's and the story's not the strongest, but it was a great experience, and we were very happy with it. And I think I'm still happy with the product, but I only have DVD copies of it. That's all that exists of it.
Oh, nice. And did you ever make a director's cut?
I would say the assembly was the director's cut, and it was way over an hour, like an hour and a half. But
wow.
yeah, I spent a lot of time editing that. I spent months editing that and like color grading it. I did it on Final Cut 7.
Oh geez.
So way back in the day.
Yeah.
I was just in my room on my laptop putting that whole movie together. It was crazy. And James was going to college at the time, so he would like come over and we'd work on the edit and all this, and it was just like this crazy long process. I think it was like 6 months in total.
Damn. Yeah, but I mean, it's a miracle though. You got your first project done.
Yeah,
I think that's something to be proud of. And what was your degree? Because you went to film school. So what was the if it is degrees? I'm not sure how it works fully with that, but what was the what did you get?
I got the
I don't know how to ask this.
So I went to New York Film Academy. I got the conservatory filmmaking certificate, and then I also did part-time writing classes at Emerson and in Suffolk and in Harvard screenwriting.
Oh, awesome. So some good certificates there. And do you think that at least with what you learned with screenwriting, that you've been able to apply that and that's helped strengthen you as a writer?
Honestly, I would say, I mean, you learn the basic rules, which are important, like format and story elements and structure. But ultimately, I found that just the more I've learned, the most about writing from writing. And I've written a bunch of screenplays, and you learn every time you write. And for me, I kept getting better and I do think I feel confident that I'm at a very good point. And right now I have a couple of feature scripts that I'm working to pitch very soon, but it took a while to get there. And I found actually more learning about writing from older writers and even ancient writers, like the Meditations. I learned so much about writing from Meditations. And also like people like Aaron Sorkin. There's a wealth of video content and information from really successful, great writers that have so much to say and so many great tricks and rules to live by. David Mamet is a writer that I really look up to, and he has a great masterclass. So I would say I've learned way more outside of film school about writing screenplays than I have. And there are great sources like Save the Cat where you can learn like the true basics, but ultimately I think that this schools and then those kinds of books can be restrictive of saying you have to write a certain way, whereas the screenplay should be as interesting of a read as a good novel, and just following a bunch of basic rules can, I think, really hinder your process and hinder how the reader experiences. And I think a lot of people, when they're writing screenplays, they might be thinking, I have to follow the rules and I have to keep as much white space in there, and I have to make sure it's slim and trim and leave the scene as soon as possible. But the writing can be stale and flat because of how restrictive they are with the rules. But it's important when you're writing, I've learned to, because the goal with writing is to get someone to read your screenplay and be like, oh, I want to help make this movie. And so you have to make the writing exciting for them to feel that way. And so I think you need to put as much personality into the writing as you can while still maintaining a sense of the guidelines.
Right. And I think C. Robert Cargill recently said something about, don't worry about editing, get the vision out there first. Put out what you want it to be. You could fix everything in editing, the formatting, even grammar. Just get the thing out there first, and then you could polish it up. That should always be the goal there.
Oh, absolutely. At the end of the day, I know a lot of people it be difficult for them to finish one, but and a trick I found is, like, when I was younger, I would put so much pressure on, this has to be like a Tarantino level script right off the bat. So I think I've definitely put a lot of pressure on myself to just, I was putting it on a pedestal and making it has to be amazing. But at the end of the day, no first draft is good, but a finished first draft is better than no draft. And then the first draft is what you work off of. And it's all about rewriting in my experience. Rewriting is really where you hone in on what the story is. But as long as you can just get that first draft done, even if it's not good, it's a major step forward. Yep,
absolutely. And speaking of masterclass real quick, Aaron Sorkin's masterclass I thought was really good. I haven't done David Mamet's, but Aaron Sorkin's was pretty
it was great.
Yeah. And there was a bit of a gap between Noah and Midnight Ruin. So just kind of like, I guess during that gap in time, kind of what were you up to? And then what got you back into making a project? Like, what got you back around to doing this, and why Midnight Ruin?
Honestly, the gap was moving to Los Angeles and just trying to afford living there. And so just working, getting jobs however I could. And I fell into fashion photography. And so I found a pretty good amount of success in fashion photography and became full-time at that. And so I just rode that wave for a while, but it never felt right for me, because I still wanted to make films, and I was always working out ideas and writing in my time, but like photography, and I did some filmmaking, but it was like fashion films and music videos. But it was I mostly did like artsy fashion photography, like editorial stuff and lookbook stuff. That supported me. I was supporting me for a while. I did that. But before that, I was just like bouncing around jobs, just paying the bills. Once I became full-time on photography, I just stuck with that for a while because it was doing well. But then I just wasn't really feeling it, and I was just like, I want to make movies. I mean, this is great, but it's not what I want to do. And so this is when lockdown happened, and I lost all my work, and I was like, I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills, and who knows when things open up again. So that's when we started the podcast. And the podcast, that took a year to get up and running, of like just full steam ahead. We put everything into it, like all of our free time. We just busted our butts for a year straight, and then we were full time on it. And then it was about, okay, the podcast is doing well. Now I'd like to start making movies again. And so that's when I got to Midnight Ruin, the first short film I made.
Awesome. And I noticed between Midnight Ruin and Noah, they're a little grittier, they're darker. You got, petty crime with Midnight Ruin, and Noah is like this dystopian alternate reality. What gravitated you towards those darker stories, and how did that contrast with your most recent effort with The Mother, where you kind of take a period piece drama?
I would say, well, I'm always inspired by movies that I'm watching in a way. And so the film Noah, I was obsessed with Children of Men and films like that. And so that's definitely infused into what that concept is. And then I think it's a brilliant novel. If anyone hasn't read Children of Men, it's a great novel. And I love Alfonso Cuarón. And then also,
and Lubeski, right?
Lubeski, yeah, Lubeski, the best DP alive. And I thought it was like, it was a fun concept. When I'm trying to work on something, it's always like, does this idea interest me? And it really interested me. And then with Midnight Ruin, whenever I have like an idea, I just write it down. I have a big Google Doc with just a bunch of ideas, but like most of them, like they're just sitting there for a while, collecting like digital dust, because like I have a concept, but I can't like crack what the story is.
Right.
And that one was an idea I wrote down a year and a half before, and the concept was one man asks a friend to kill him, and then the friend agrees to it, but puts a blank in the gun. And the first man ends up deciding after the blank fires that he doesn't want to die. So that was my concept, but I didn't think it was good enough. I was like, it's just like I feel like that's pretty fun, but it's not that interesting. But then when I was just going through my ideas and I looked at it, and something clicked where I said, but what if the guy, even though he saved his life, still wants the money that they'd agreed upon? And I was like, that's the hook. Because the suicidal man was going to pay him a ton of money for killing him. And since no death happened, there was a blank, the suicidal man is not suicidal anymore. He doesn't want to give the guy his money. But the other guy's like, I saved your life, give me the money. When I figured that out, I was like, oh, that's a fun twist. And then I wrote that literally in a week, and I was like, it's actually good. So it was like I got the idea a year before. Then I cracked like the little twist, and then I was like, okay, now it works well. Wrote it out, thought it was really good and really fun. And I was like, you know what? I want to do it. Let's just fucking go. And so James and I just put it together literally in about a month and a half.
Awesome.
And then the Mother, and I think I love South Korean cinema, and so I have been watching a lot of that. So and I love the Coen brothers, and the Coens in a lot of South Korean dark films and horror, they still have like a great comedic bent to them, these dark comedic tones. And I love the Coens, like amazing stuff. And Blood Simple, that movie Blood Simple, their first film, was huge. Like when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's so amazing. So that was a big inspiration for my concept of the tone of Midnight Ruin.
Nice.
And then with the Mother is very different. It's a family drama period piece set in 19th century England, and that honestly just came about because my partner, she lives in London, and she's an actress, and I was going to be visiting her for a month in Cambridge, which is a beautiful place, really beautiful part of England, and I wanted to make something with her because I knew she was very talented, and I love period films. And I love historical fiction, and I think they're really immersive when they work. They really work. Hence, like so many of my favorite films are period pieces, if not all of them. And I was like, I've always wanted to make a period piece because it's very challenging, and you don't see that many short films as periods. And if you want to do a period film in LA or California, you kind of don't have that many choices of what the story can be, because you have mostly deserts to work with and like 70s architecture. So you kind of restricted. You can do a cool Western, but I was like, I didn't want to do like everyone does Westerns out here and stuff like that. And so I was like, I was going to be basically living in Cambridge for a month. So I was like, oh, let me try and see if I can find something. And I went on rental websites and I found this huge manor. It's an 1800s Victorian accurate manor for rent for filming. And it was an hour north of Cambridge. So like very north in England. And it had a good price. And so I just rented it. I booked a rental for a weekend. And this was like in April of 2024. After I asked my girlfriend, hey, would you like to act in a short film for me? She was like, yeah. And so I knew I had the location and I had the actor, the lead actor, and I just had to come up with a story. So I wrote a story with the pieces I had with her as an actress and then with the location, it was a beautiful big home, huge, like there's like a huge vegetable garden, there's bush mazes, unbelievable high tall grass fields, just really beautiful location. And I was like, I could really craft a story. So I came up with a story about this woman who takes in a runaway boy who claims he's an orphan because he's looking for a safe place to stay, and then his family sends people looking for him because he's not an orphan. And so I was like, oh, that's a fun concept. It's like, how can you I'm interested in stories that like it makes you question like what's the right and wrong. There's moral gray here. And I thought it was a really interesting concept of like this woman, even though she knows he has a family that wants him back, they're abusive. So she wants to, in a way, protect him by taking him in as her own. So that was an interesting conflict. And I gave myself a challenge of basically doing a 3-act structure in 13 minutes. And I think I pulled it off. There's a first act, second act, and then a resolution in that film. And also, I think I wanted to write a good tragedy. I don't think we get that many like great tragedies anymore, really. And I think tragedy is a great part of drama, and whether it be theater or film. And so I wanted to make a really powerful tragedy that maybe I could get the audience to cry within a few minutes.
And when it comes to something like a period piece, so I know that you've spoken highly about some of Robert Eggers' projects, and he really likes to he transports himself to these time periods. What was what kind of research did you do to make it as authentic feeling as possible in terms of like writing dialogue, right? Trying to get the dialect right.
So it was a lot of research in terms of I was scouring the internet because the dialect has to be a certain way. And if you watch the film, like it's pretty good, accurate dialogue. My girlfriend did help me out because she's a highly trained actor, so she knows like RP, proper pronunciations, and certain dialects from back then. So it was very helpful. But also, the best way to make it immersive was if the costuming worked and if the production design worked. And so I was researching what would people wear at this certain era. It's set in 1882. And so what are they wearing then? And I came across a great costume designer. We worked together really well. And her name's Victoria. And we put together a great set of clothes. So we have 4 actors. And on top of that, production design. So me and my producer, Ewan, we just went all over the UK. There's a bunch of prop houses in the area, and we just found everything that could be period accurate. And also, like, once you put the actors in costume and you have some interesting props, it's like it kind of already feels right. And unfortunately, we couldn't show on film. I couldn't afford film because that's what I also wanted to do to help capture the world, because I think nothing compares to film, especially if you want to do a period film. And so I couldn't do that, but we shot the film on a Sony FX6 with my DP Toby Lloyd, that he owned it, and we got this really great set of vintage lenses from the 60s that added a really beautiful softness to it. And so the imagery, it's really delicate and very soft. So I think so much digital cinema, everything's so sharp and clean and sterile, but I wanted it to feel tangible. And even though it's digital, there's some good texture to the imagery that really makes it feel as close to film as you can get. And then we color graded it with my color grader Mara to really help it feel like it was on a film stock. So all these elements, as well as the biggest thing for cinematography besides the lenses, was just shooting with natural lights. So we used candlelight for the nighttime sequences, and then we only used like 100% natural light from windows or wherever we were outside. And I also I love like filmmakers like Spielberg, and he and Giannis, his DP, have created this incredible look of like blowing out the windows and lights pouring in, and I think it works really well. But I wanted to do something where you can actually see the exterior through windows. Like you can see trees in the background, you can see the grass of this estate. And so my goal was to be like, you know what? Let's just shoot on this digital camera. It's got great low light, and we can shoot at both the interior light and exposed to outside, so we can actually see in this film. You can see the bushes and the trees through the windows. I mean, that was a goal that I wanted to help. So then for me, I was like, it's really not feeling like there's anything artificial in the frame whatsoever.
Yeah, and I think that translated really, really well. I thought the movie was absolutely gorgeous, and I love natural light, and Terry Malick does that perfectly in most of his movies. You know, we were talking about that earlier, but yeah, that and a lot of the cinematography, I mean, it felt reminiscent to Terry Malick. So definitely love to see that.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that, because Malick's always an inspiration for me, and then Lubeski is DP. And so even when we're shooting outside, we did our best we can without even using diffusers or bounce boards. And so just shooting at the right times, there were a lot of trees and tall bushes, so we used those to our advantage, and to try to not even diffuse light, just to really use as much of what the sun's giving us. And I think that a lot of people can get stuck into what they think they have to do in terms of doing lighting and cinematography. Like, we need these lights to do this. I spoke to a lot of DPs before I got Toby, because I told them I don't want to blow out the windows, and I want to see both the actors in the interior with the same exposure as outside. And they were like, no. I spoke to 5 DPs. They said it was impossible. They said I needed to get all these lights to pour into the windows, and they said there's no way it would ever work. And I was like, no, I know it can work. I know it's very doable. And they all had this idea of like they had to have big crews to do these huge lights in the windows. And I was like, that's not what I want, and I can't afford that. And so when I told Toby about what my concept was for the visuals for the lighting, he was like, that sounds great, let's do it. And so he's someone who like understands like there's not one way to shoot things. And someone like Terrence Malick, he's always been like just trying it out and stripping down what a film set is.
Right. And I think it's awesome to work with people, have a team of people that are on the same mindset as you. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that must have been great to go to Toby and have him be like, oh, hell yeah. All right. Yeah. Let's do it. Yeah.
It's great.
It's a great feeling. Your filmography thus far has been pretty diverse in setting, tone, and performances. What have been some of the biggest challenges of writing and directing, and what elements have been the most rewarding for you?
The biggest challenge for writing is to just write something that's interesting in about 10 pages. In some ways, screenwriting is very difficult. I think it's harder than novel writing, which I've also done, because there are rules that you do have to follow, but there's also rules you don't have to follow. But there is a certain amount that you have to stick within these certain parameters, but also trying to tell an interesting story that on the screen the audience would enjoy. And especially in this day and age, to get them to stick with you, because oftentimes watching on their phone, or there's something on in the background. So making something that can pull a person away from everything else they could be doing, I think it's a challenge, especially if they're not in a movie theater, because in a movie theater, the movie's in charge, but at home, you're in charge. And so I think that it can be a challenge to maintain an audience's interest watching a short. So it's always a challenge of writing and making it engaging, making it something they haven't seen before. But also, as someone who wants to be a feature film director, you have to show that you have to make it feel like it's on the cinematic level, like a big feature film budget look and feel. So the production has to look good. That's also a challenge, because you're often working with a very small amount of money.
Right. And, outside of that, what has been the most rewarding thing for you so far?
Honestly, I would say the most rewarding thing is the collaborative process with other artists is just always, I think, my favorite part about being on a film set. Whether it starts in prep and it ends in post, but putting a bunch of heads together and figuring things out and coming up with a vision and making sure everybody's enjoying what they're doing, and then letting other people just like use their talents to the best of their abilities and give them freedom to really do what they want to do. So I always have an amazing experience. All of my films, luckily, especially the short films, because something I learned from my first film was hire a big crew. Get a person for every job who actually is, that's their job. And so once you have a nice crew of people who are passionate about what they're doing and they're into the project, for me, my last 2 short films have just been really delightful experiences on set, even when the shoots were hard, and there were complications. It's the collaborative process that's always just, for me, it's so much fun, and I find it to just be an utter joy being on set and being like the leader of a group of people. It's my favorite thing to do.
Yeah, that's great. And something that I've really loved with being on set is I like when problems occur because I love troubleshooting.
Great. That's what filmmaking is.
Yeah, that's all it is. So and I used to work at I still kind of work at a factory, but I used to be on the production line at a factory, and I loved coming into days where everything was running like shit, and it's like, all right, how are we going to fix this? And then, and doing that. And that kind of leads me into the next question here. So when you're operating within the confines of a micro or a small budget, it could be restricting, but it could lead to some awesome innovation. Same with problem solving. Like I mentioned about Jaws earlier, you get some really good innovation out of it. What has been an innovation you've either done yourself or recognized in another project? That's the question.
Well, I would say, so what I talked about with the lighting and the mother, because I had a certain vision, but also not enough money to hire a large camera crew, I was like, this is how it has to be done. And in a way, it was kind of reverse innovation, where we stripped down and took away all the pieces that everybody usually has for lighting. And we kind of went back to as bare bone as you can get, using candlelight and things like that. So in a way, it was kind of like reverse innovation. And new tech is great, and I love new systems, but also I think we always have to remember that, the greatest films ever made were made before LED lights existed and before computers existed, and they were, they're measuring their focus lengths with tape. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So, and then in terms, also with editing, when you have shooting on a small amount of money, time on any set's very scarce. But when you're shooting a tiny budget movie, time is like very important. And Midnight Ruin, we had an issue of sound when we were shooting outside on the second day, and it was the 9-page day, so it was just it was all of our action in the climax of the film, all in this one desert area, and we were in the middle of nowhere, an hour and a half north of LA, and I picked this location because there was nothing. There's this empty lot this guy owns, and he rents it out. And then during the first dialogue scene, which was a 5-minute dialogue scene, a helicopter showed up, started flying overhead, and it circled the property for almost an hour.
Oh wow!
We couldn't film any dialogue at all, because it was just causing so much noise. So we had to play this waiting game. We couldn't shoot other sequences because the lighting was like, we basically shot the second half of this movie. We shot chronologically because the course of the film, the sun is setting, and so we couldn't shoot latter scenes at 11 a.m. because the sun was right over our heads, so it wouldn't have looked right. So we had to wait, and so the helicopter did end up going away, but I had a very rigid schedule because it was 9 pages, and that hour was very costly, and so we were just basically for the rest of the day, just going as fast as we could while still maintaining quality. But once the sun was setting, we were like, we gotta get going. So I had to cut some shots out, and then we got all the important stuff, but we just had to do another day of pickups with one of the actors for just some of his shots. But we got no land B-roll of the environment, which I wanted to do for transitions at all. Like I cut all that stuff out. And so James and I went back about a week or two later to get B-roll, and we ended up seeing this filming, and there was this unbelievable pink sunset. It was pink and blue. The land was blue, the mountains were blue, and then the sky was pink. It just looked fantastic. So I filmed all that stuff for transitions, and then it actually inspired me to color grade the final sequence with this purple, blue, pink hue to it to match that sunset. And it was never the intention, but it ended up looking really nice. And honestly, I would say the most compliments we got on that film were those shots that we got. Like, people kept saying the nighttime sunset photography was like their favorite aspect of the film in some ways. And so it was just like being crunched for time and then accidentally stumbling upon this beautiful sunset when we did pickups, just like inspired changing what the look of the movie was.
And those are the best accidents to happen right there. And
yeah,
if you had like an unlimited budget to make like a feature, like what would your dream project be? And that could be, you could get any cinematographer, you could get any actor, actress, just like, what would you go for?
I would love to do a big historical film, some kind of historical fiction. And I mean, I would go for cinematographer, either Emmanuel Lubezki or Linus Sandgren. And then I love Christian Bale and Daniel Day-Lewis. So figure out something with them. Like, they're the best. And then I really like Cate Blanchett. So those would be like my dream actors to work with. But I love historical fiction. I'd love to make like a really big historical fiction film. Like Sinners this year was a great, and I love horror. A nice big historical fiction film that was $90 million budget. And when I say period, like, I think some people, when you say period piece, they just think costume drama in England. But for me, period piece Sinners is a period piece, and There Will Be Blood, my favorite movie, is a period piece. So I would love to do like a big scale historical epic along those lines. That would be my dream gig.
Yeah, and I mean, if you did do something with horror with that, Robert Eggers needs some competition. So
I'm working on something right now that's historical horror that I can make on a pretty decent budget, like a $1 million budget. That's the goal.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I love all of his work, but yeah, we got to get someone else in that sandbox soon.
Yeah,
you know?
I love historical horror. I mean, ever since like Sleepy Hollow, I think that's such a really great gothic horror. I love gothic. I love all that shit. I eat it up.
I just watched for the first time Crimson Peak, and that's
Great.
Guillermo del Toro doing gothic, and which I just realized, I don't know why so late, but Guillermo del Toro's movies look really, really fantastic on 4K. Like, incredible.
Oh, yeah.
Nightmare Alley,
yeah.
I got a couple weeks ago. Beautiful looking.
That's one of my favorite movies of his, and I think it's one of the most underappreciated films of the last 5 years. It's a sensational film, and it was one of my favorites that year, and nobody saw it. And still nobody has seen it.
Yeah,
and I can't believe it. I was like, this movie's amazing. It's unbelievable. It's stunning. It's so good, and it has one of my favorite endings.
I was just going to bring up the ending too.
Bradley Cooper at that ending. Oh my God. I was like, my mouth was open. And I saw that in theaters. James and I saw it together because we love Guillermo. Ever since Hellboy. And then like his old stuff like Kronos is so good. And Devil's Backbone. But man, like seeing that in a theater, we were like, holy shit, that was insane. And nobody talks about Nightmare Alley.
Yeah, and it looks so good, and I just love the carny aesthetic, and I don't know, it's such like a unique story. Guillermo del Toro, I don't know what goes on in his head, but I love it.
So that's a remake of Nightmare Alley. Original was in the 30s.
Oh wow, so it was an old one.
Yeah, but he put his own spin on it.
Yeah, of course.
He made it very different.
Yeah, and he likes period pieces. Now that I think about it, he likes those a lot, actually.
Oh yeah, you see a lot of the auteur filmmakers are sticking with period pieces nowadays. Tarantino, I mean, he hasn't made a period piece since when his first movies were contemporary, but now they're not because. And then PTA finally made a movie since Magnolia. I mean, since Punch Drunk Love that has a smartphone in it. This is the first movie with smartphones in it. But Eggers, I think there are a lot of filmmakers that they and that's I have a very big attraction to historical movies and period pieces, and I think they have that same like attraction to it because smartphones, they don't feel that cinematic unless it's Fincher's doing it, and
Yeah.
Smartphones create so many solves for conflicts that's like it's hard to write a cool story with the smartphone in it because you can just solve so many problems with that thing.
Yeah, even Scream was starting to struggle with how they utilize it because it started to become a magical device for the killers.
Yeah.
So it was still it was the opposite. Instead of the heroes using it to help them, it was just like a magical tool for the killers to be whoever they wanted to be.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just like I did not like that at all. I did not like that.
Yeah.
I wasn't a fan of that movie.
Right.
I honestly wanted to walk out, but I stayed.
Yeah, and yeah, I love that Robert Eggers, he says, what was it? He never wants there to be a car in his movies. Is that what he said?
Yeah,
he
said
never wants
like
to see a car.
Something about a car. Yeah, I love movies with cars. Like I love period pieces with cars. Like
Right.
like man, there's some really great like oh my god, some good ones with like muscle cars or just like I'm cool. I just think with computers and smartphones, it's hard to make it feel like a proper cinema.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. There is this like I would call this like pre-period piece where it's like way back, Out of the Darkness, I think, or it was like cavemen times, or no, it was like right after that where there was this
Neanderthal?
creature. Yeah, the one with the Neanderthal. What was that called? Or
Was it the comedy or
no, it was a serious movie.
I don't know it.
These people, they're not Neanderthals, but they're being killed off by something, and it turns out it was a Neanderthal that was killing them off.
Oh wow, that's cool.
I don't know. It wasn't great, but I loved that concept. I just that part of it, I'm like, oh, that I've never seen that before, so I fucking love that. That's great. But
yeah, that's all. I would watch that. I'm gonna watch it now.
Yeah, that's
Adding
what
it to my watch list.
Yeah, I need to think of the name of it. I might be mixing it up with a werewolf movie, but that's kind of tapping into historical fiction. When you go further back, just the way people play with things in history, I think, is really fascinating.
Yeah, and historical films don't always have to be big films. They can stay small, like some of Eggers' films. And I feel like you're so much freedom with what you can do because crazy shit happened back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy stuff would happen all over the world.
Yeah.
The insane. Like we live in a very, very cushy time in the history of humanity.
Yeah, there were times where you didn't live past like 25.
Yeah,
like you
Uber
just
Eats now.
Right. Things have changed. We should go back. No, I'm kidding. I would not be able to survive. I'm sorry, but I love camping. It's been a while, but it's liberating to be somewhere without any technology. But
oh yeah, it's the best. I love it.
But then you start getting like the technology itches, and you have to come back to reality at some point.
100%.
So I like to start these interviews and end them with the same question for everybody. So this next question here, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And that could be personally or professionally.
Mm-hmm. I would say in 5 years, I see myself making films and doing a podcast that is much bigger in scale than this. So growing both the podcast and then making feature films, and James as well. So both of us kind of like we like to say we're like Tony Scott and Ridley Scott. One directs, the other produces it, and vice versa. The other directs and the other produces it. So making feature films and then just having really cool guests on the show that like the big podcasts have. And traveling the world. I love traveling. I would like to make movies all around the world.
You know what? One of my favorite directors of all time, Werner Herzog, he's filmed quite a few of his best movies in other parts of the world, maybe to the detriment and safety of others, but yeah, that would be amazing to like be on set. You make your set somewhere.
Yeah. Maybe
not the Amazon, but still being able to capture some of that. I think it makes it more organic, I think.
Yeah, I'm really interested in other cultures, and I always love that's because I think movies are, in a lot of ways, movies can be a bridge to a different culture, to a different time, to a different kind of person, and they're this beautiful way to connect to a human being or a society or a culture that you would never have connected to in the past. So that's a magic about movies that I really love.
Yeah, and to your point, you get to learn from it. It could be fiction, but there could still be something for the viewers to learn, and I think that's always going to be important.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's this creator who back in the 90s made a trilogy of like documentary movies with long titles, and then they recently made movies like I think it's like
the Dardenne brothers.
What was it? The one where it's like I can't even pronounce it, but it has the Philip Glass score that was used in Watchmen in 2009.
Oh, are these guys? Is it Belgium films? I'm not sure about.
It's like,
I'm not sure if I know that.
I'm gonna have to pull up IMDb.
Go for it.
The titles are they're too long for me to. I think the same director made Samsara in 2011, which is another documentary.
Oh yeah. I know who you're talking about.
But
yeah,
the other movies by this person, I think, they kind of capture different cultures in a sense and different parts of the world, and I think they do that really well. Like they did Baraka in 1992 and Koyaanisqatsi. There it is. I think that's
I saw Samsara when it came out. It was insane.
I might still have the poster for it, but it might be ripped. But I got it I worked at the theater, so cool. I like to grab like whatever posters possible, and that was one of them. Gorgeous looking movie. But yeah, okay. So it was the Koyaanisqatsi. In 2002, it was Nakoikatsi, and then I think there was another one somewhere else, but. Yeah, kind of long story short, I felt that those documentaries did that in a sense where it was capturing different parts of the contemporary world, at least the times when they were filmed.
Yeah, and it's interesting because like it feels like it's from the past, but it's actually right now. It's just across the globe.
Yeah. Yep. I love that.
It's so interesting.
But awesome. Love talking with you. Love listening to the podcast, and
thanks, man.
It's really great what you've been able to do so far with your film career. Can't wait to see you do your feature and maybe even some more shorts.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. It means a lot.
It was a pleasure. That was a good chat. That was a great chat. I just love talking about film. It's great.
I could do it all day.
For real.
Thank you.
But I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'm glad you watched the film and that you enjoyed it. At the end of the day, I just hope that people give it their time, and I'm very grateful that people take their time to actually, even though it's only 13 minutes, but still you're asking a lot of people, and so if someone watches it and enjoys it, it's worth making it.
Absolutely.